Live here on AMP, September 28th. Football wasn't that long ago. We were begging for it to be here. Now we're already in NFL week 4. College feels like we're in week 8. And I got my man Stuckey from the Action Network, Big Bets on Campus, who is red hot right now. NFL pick 7-4. If I wanted to count, which I think is just the pick that no one saw coming beside the smart guys behind the scenes, the Florida-Tennessee college game, which he fucking hit with ease. Stuckey's hot. Stuckey, what's up, bro?
What's going on, brother? Yeah, it's we're in the midst of it now. We're going to start to learn about, although some of these teams we're not going to learn about at the top. We're not going to learn about for a while, but in college, like Michigan still doesn't play anyone for like the next 5 weeks because the Big Ten is so bad at the bottom, and Georgia really doesn't play anyone all year. But learn a little bit about them against Auburn this week, and NFL, we got some pretty good matchups this weekend. Unfortunately, the NFL doesn't flex games this early because Bills Dolphins over Zach Wilson in primetime would certainly be the move.
Shows you in college has much more flexibility with that as the season goes. The NFL, and I don't blame them, right? Rodgers versus the Chiefs, but clearly that changes 4 plays in, and it's like you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And the Dolphins are, one of the teams of the last. I mean, I don't remember any team starting this fast that people thought they were going to be good, but you score 70 points, and they got the quirky coach, and they kind of feel like the Golden State Warriors in like 2015 or something. You're like, Jesus, the hell are you going to do with this team? But they're the underdog this weekend. We'll get into the NFL here in a second, and I'm going to do something a little different to start before we get to your picks. But I did want to touch on, because we talked about this before we hit record here. I don't know if you've seen the list of celebrities coming to this game in Colorado. It's like Jay-Z, LeBron and Bronny, probably Obama. I mean, who knows? I mean, everyone's coming. Legitimately, Jay-Z and LeBron are going. Obviously, T.O., I think, is on the staff or something. He's always around. Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. probably make a cameo. This game is big noon kickoff. The ratings have been outrageous. Colorado got their ass kicked last week. They took it on the chin. Pretty embarrassing, I thought, moment for them once the Oregon video comes out of them talking shit to the other players. Like, guys, you guys aren't Deion, right? Let's be careful here. And they ran into a buzzsaw, which a team that, I think has a legitimate chance to be a playoff team in Oregon. USC, in theory, does, but defensively, they are not as physical as Oregon. But offensively, they are elite. I mean, they got a guy that's going to get drafted number 1. They got skill guys everywhere. Honestly, it's kind of like the team times 5 of TCU style, right? Just going to score a bunch of points. We'll give up a bunch. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but I went to the ASU game 2 weeks ago against Fresno State, and Fresno State beat the shit out of them. And then I'm following the score on my phone at this wedding. It's like, what is USC doing? USC is not for every time they beat Stanford 49-3 going into halftime, you can look up and it can be tied because their defense sucks. So huge line here. Colorado getting 21 plus points at home. That feels like a lot, man, for a team that's, Lincoln Riley's history, especially this last year and however many games at USC, their defense is just not good. I don't care how many transfers come from the SEC.
Yeah, it's basically just Oklahoma picked up and moved out in Los Angeles. It's the same defensive coordinator with the same problems that they just refuse to fix. And the offense is elite. There's weapons everywhere. You have a Heisman quarterback. It's all the same shit that we saw at Oklahoma. And ultimately, what ends up happening is the defense burns them because you run into another elite team that can score and you just can't get any stops, and they can. So, yeah, this number does seem – I mean, look, as you said, Fresno State shut out Arizona State. Arizona State was shut out at home for the first time since 1988. They had 8 turnovers. I think they used 11 quarterbacks. I don't know how many they used, but they used a lot of quarterbacks.
They used 3. They used 3.
Yeah, who did nothing. And then it's like 35-28 because the USC defense just isn't that good, and you can move the ball on them. And look, Colorado is flawed. Their offensive line, it's not that great. They can't run the ball at all. The defense is thin, and you're also missing Hunter, who's important on both sides of the ball. But Sanders is playing at such a high level that they should be able to put up points against this USC team. And then if it's a blowout, like USC blowing you out, like if it's 56-28 in the 4th, like you could go down and score a touchdown and still cover in a complete blowout. So Yeah, I was all over Oregon last week. The one thing that concerns me, though, you say, like, but this week I'm not laying 21.5 with USC and that defense on the road. But every week, I think it's good for like building the program and drawing attention to it for, potential future transfer additions. But every week for Colorado is this huge spectacle. And like, it's so emotional in this big event that it's got to be exhausting for the kids. You have a lot of these other programs that they're going to start playing, the top teams in the Pac-12, like they're beating the shit out of, Cupcake State in week 2, and they're not exerting much energy. Colorado's exerting energy every single week. And then you're bringing you're talking shit, and then you're bringing all these celebrities in, like kind of serving
lot going on.
And you're trying to, and that serves as motivation for these other teams to want to beat the shit out of you. And when, like, in theory, USC going to Colorado, if there wasn't all this hoopla around Colorado, like that's supposed to be like a sleepy, trappy spot for USC and their defense, but they're going to come in fully focused. But yeah,
well, to me,
I think it's a little too many points with this USC.
Of all the weeks Dan Lanning will have over last year and this year of getting ready for good teams, Washington, USC, Utah, that's like serious football week. But he'll never have a week when he's that favored by that much that's as easy to like get the troops ready all week. So you're always getting these squads. Now, to me, it's a little different to USC. The other thing with USC is because Fox, right, their biggest game of the week ratings wise is always that 9 a.m. for us on the West Coast kickoff. And Colorado's now been a rating juggernaut. They love putting that game there. And they did it earlier with Nebraska. And obviously they're doing it this week. Not ideal for USC.
Yeah, 9 a.m. body clock kick.
Yeah, it's listen, 12:30. Once you get to college, you get used to playing that time. You'd rather probably play 4, but not. That's a sneaky spot that I could see USC. I don't know. I could just see it being weird. Caleb maybe just a little dreary.
Yeah, and Colorado's done it already this year. Right?
Exactly.
They played it in that time slot,
and they just got their ass kicked, so they're going to have just motivation to like play better. It's an easy.
The place will be electric. So if they can catch USC and that defense, which isn't that great, they can catch them early and jump out. Then all of a sudden, like all the pressure shifts to USC. The crowd is going to be crazy. You might get a couple calls, and then all of a sudden it gets really interesting. So yeah, that's a great point. The very early on in this game, if Colorado is going to be live to make this a game, they got to get out to a fast start.
Okay, one thing I wanted to do, because people have been asking, like, Middlekauff, you never make a pick. And usually I used to just bet a lot of games. I got this big remodel going on, so I got to be careful with my cash. What I've been doing is just going kind of big, and $100 on a game doesn't get my rocks off. So if I'm going to spread it around, I'm just been going big on one game. Last week I did Seattle, sweated it for a minute, but they covered. This week I've gone back and forth on 2 games.
Did you bet Notre Dame last week too? Did you bet Notre Dame?
I didn't, because I wasn't going to be able to watch it, but and I felt better. I don't know enough about college football in terms of like those 2 teams. I hadn't really watched Sam Hartman. He had been beating nobodies. I liked the number, but I didn't know. I felt better about Seattle against Carolina, who I knew sucked, especially once Dalton was going to go, even though it was tough, but they scored 37 points, which was crazy because Carolina's defense actually pretty good. So this week, I'm tempted. Like I got 2 games circled, obviously the Sunday night game, but you go, that's one of those classic, like, feels too big of a lock, right? Kansas City going to kill them, and then all of a sudden you're just in a weird game. But like that defense is playing really good, but I just stayed away from that. I just don't think New England's that good. I think their offense is. I think Mac Jones' average day is long. I don't think they're that talented. Their running game is a shell of what it was a couple years ago when they made the playoffs and they could run down people's throats. Defensively, clearly they can just make the game ugly. I don't think they have like elite talent. They've been banged up on that unit. Everyone, because Dallas kind of lays an egg in Arizona, is going to be like, oh, Dallas is actually average. Dallas -6.5 at home. Like I view New England, and listen, it's no disrespect to Bill. I do think he is an awesome coach, and most teams, if you gave them this roster, would probably win like 3 games. He's going to win probably 6 or 7, but they're still a 6 or 7 win team. And to me, Dallas is still, on a given week when they're playing right, a top probably should be a top 5 team. And last week they lose one of their best players. Those guys are. I wonder if that rattled them a little bit. I'm going Dallas -6.5, and these are back-to-back weeks now, going all in on a home team, given a decent amount of points. But I just don't think New England's that good. And if I rank Dallas like 5th, I'd rank New England closer to like low 20s. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's a good bounce back spot for Dallas. I think Dallas just they had some injuries on the offensive line. They lose Diggs. And I also think that they just went in there and completely overlooked Arizona.
They were terrible in the red zone, too. I mean, they moved.
Yeah, they were in the red zone like 6 times and didn't score anything. But you saw this with even the Giants after loss. Like, they got down 28-0 to Arizona. So I think a lot of these teams, I think it's going to work in San Francisco's favor this week because, they just saw Arizona beat Dallas, right? But I think a lot of these teams knew how bad this roster was and just assumed like it's going to be a free win. And then, these are still professionals playing hard. So I think Dallas has kind of got caught in a sleepy spot. Yeah, I agree with your assessment on Mac Jones. But the Patriots, they're a weird team to me because they did play Philly really tough and they played Miami really tough. So they can ugly up a game. And yeah, the run game isn't what it was, but that's Dallas's weakness, their run defense. I mean, Arizona ran for over 200 against them. So yeah, I can see New England, just ugling this up enough to stay within the number. But I agree. I think now that this spread, the lookout line was -7.5. Now, because Dallas lost, who cares if New England beat Zach Wilson? They basically just scored and then said we're good and punted the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Because Dallas lost to Arizona, you're now getting under a touchdown in a good bounce back spot at home. So yeah, I think from a market buy low, sell high perspective, I think Dallas is the spot, but I would be just a bit concerned about New England uglying up this game enough. But I think it's Dallas or nothing.
Yeah, philosophically, I used to gamble a lot on overs in the NBA. And then I got a little too deep into it. I started doing unders as well. And definitely in the NFL, I'm just not a big under guy, but that might be the play here, right?
Yep.
I mean, this game could just be low scoring. Cowboys win. That's the one thing that makes me nervous. But it's football. I mean, last week I was like, oh fuck, Carolina ain't scoring more than 13 points. All of a sudden you look up, you're like, what the hell is going on? That's what makes gambling. That's what makes the sweat fun. Okay, let's dive in. The Jags, who are headed overseas now for a couple straight weeks, are playing Atlanta, who, is it safe to say, got their ass kicked last week by the Lions?
Yep.
So the Jags have looked pretty terrible. And I saw Doug Peterson, I don't know if screamed at like his offensive staff last halftime, but I think they had some words. Clearly they got worked, which I would say was one of the shockers of the week in terms, just for the casual fan. Like, are the Jags not good? And offensively, like, one of the things I thought their formula was going to be an elite offense and be bad on defense, but be, like a top 5-6 offense in the league. And they have not been very good on offense so far. I don't like Atlanta. Never have, never really will. But definitely not this team with Desmond Ridder. I know you like the Jags -3. Give us a sales pitch here.
Yeah, look, the Jags have not been good this year, but they're off back-to-back losses. I think this is the spot to buy them. They're going to a place that they're really familiar with. Atlanta, second straight road game going overseas, not as familiar there. And if you look at what Atlanta's done so far, like, you beat a rookie quarterback. You were trailing in the second half, who has not looked good at all in the opener. You beat Green Bay by 1. They were missing like half of their best players. And
kind of a weird win too. I mean, Green Bay should have won that game, I thought.
Yeah,
I watched a lot of it.
Yeah, even without a number of key players. And then you get drilled by a Detroit team that was dealing with a lot of injuries. And just the offense is not where I thought it could be. They have a lot of different chess pieces, and they're just hamstrung because their quarterback can't throw the ball. So just on the surface, this is Trevor Lawrence versus Desmond Ridder. I'm going to side with Trevor Lawrence, even though he hasn't looked great this year. But, that's something we've seen with Trevor Lawrence throughout his career so far, just inconsistency, right? He will have these stretches where he looks like the best quarterback in the NFL, and then you're saying, what's going on here? I think this is a good defense to face to kind of get back on track. And most importantly, and look, the Jacksonville last week, they lost by 20, but they got a white fullback returning a kick for a touchdown, which was insane. The up man returns it. They had a block.
Shout out Mike Allstott.
Yeah, but they actually outgained. It wasn't as bad as it looked. But Lawrence has definitely been off. The defense isn't great. The secondary is awful, but they're really good against the run. The defensive coordinator is a Todd Bowles disciple. Todd Bowles' defenses, just by design, are always good against the run. And this defense last year, excellent against the run, bad against the pass. Same thing this year. Top three, I should say, in rush success rate, EPA per rush allowed. You could throw on them, but you can't run on them. Well, what does Atlanta want to do? They're basically a service academy in the NFL. They can't throw the ball. They just want to run. So they're not going to be able to do that here. You can see Jacksonville probably bring another safety down, force Ritter to beat them. I don't think he can. So I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Jags. Jags also been a bit unlucky. They're like 28% on third downs. That's like Zach Wilson territory. Last year, they were top 10 in the league. And, they're 1 of 7, I think, on fourth downs. Last year, they were at 54%. So some of these late down variants and, special teams blunders have gone against them. That's just randomness. But I think this is a good bounce back spot and a good matchup, most importantly. So you get the better quarterback, you get a good matchup for their defense, and in a place that they're familiar with. So I think 3 is a good number to lay here. The look at line was like 4.5, 5. So now because of the back-to-back losses, Jags not looking great last week, you're getting 3, and I disagree with that big of a move, especially because it's not like Atlanta has impressed me.
Okay, Cleveland, Baltimore. You fall. I got a DM the other day from a Ravens fan. I do this mailbag thing, and he's like, "Listen, I've been watching the Ravens forever. What's up with these injuries? Like, why for years now are just guys dropping like flies constantly? It's just." And I said, "Listen, it's football. You've seen it with the Eagles, the 49ers a couple years ago. Sometimes it's just kind of dumb luck. Now, when injured guys keep getting injured, then it's kind of on you for keeping the player. But like, I don't know what else to say beside it's football. Guys get injured."
Yeah, a lot of Ravens guys wanted to blame Steve Saunders, the strength and conditioning coach. He got fired. That wasn't the problem. I don't know. I think it's just bad luck. I mean, one of the reasons why I really like the 49ers this year, because you have to ask yourself, like, is there some systemic issue with how they're recovering, treating, training? Because the 49ers have been in the top 10 in adjusted games lost on offense and defense for like 8 years. So at one point you're like, all right, how can this keep happening? But what if the 49ers ever got good injury luck for an entire season? How dangerous would they actually be? Yeah, and the Ravens are going on like 3 straight years now where it is just horrendous injury luck. You're down 7-8 key starters already. And look, yeah, I like the Browns here in this game. This is similar to last week. Like I took the Browns. I faded that's my team, the Ravens. They just have 2. I don't think the market's adjusting for how many injuries they have. I mean, you're missing your top corner. You have injuries at safety. You've lost your slot corner, depth pieces in the secondary. They don't have a pass rush anymore because Owe, Ajabo are hurt. You've already lost Dobbins. You have other injuries at running back. Beckham wasn't practicing. You have injuries at wide receiver. Offensive linemen might come back this week, but they still might be hobbled, might not go. I mean, that's a lot of starters missing. Meanwhile, the Browns, you lost Chubb, but other than that, they're pretty healthy. And this defense, I think, might be the best in the NFL. They are dominating right now. I loved them coming into the year because last year they just had these communication issues. You just get a new defense coordinator who can fix that low-hanging fruit. They added bulk in the interior to fix the run defense. You bring in Juan Thornhill to add to the safety group. Already have 3 really good corners. You have Myles Garrett who's playing out of his mind, defensive player of the year level. Last week, he just destroyed Tennessee to the point where Vrabel just was shaking his head and they were just punting to get out of town at the end of that game. This defense is dominating right now. They're playing with so much swagger and confidence that I've only seen from like the most dominant defenses over the past 20 years. And Lamar is still learning this new offense under pressure this season. He's 32 out of 34 quarterback rating, and he should be under pressure a lot here. And look, yeah, there's no Chubb, but the Browns still should be able to run the ball a bit. But last week you saw Watson finally have a really good game passing, 27 of 33, 300 yards. And that was attacking a Tennessee secondary that's dealing with some injuries, a bit more vulnerable than the run D. Same thing here. So I think that he can hit enough deep shots. This Browns defense is playing so well. To put it into perspective, the Browns success rate allowed on defense is 25%. The next best is the Bills at 38%.
What's considered success?
So like if you gain, if you score on a play, if you were to gain, 4 yards on first down, if you convert a third down. So people use different tweaks of different formats, but it's basically that. Like, are you getting, you're having a successful first down play, then that would grade successful. You're having a successful second down play. Third down's always that you convert to third down. Then if you scored a touchdown, obviously that's successful. 25%. Next is 38. Last year, the defense that led the NFL was 39.5%. They're at 25. Teams have had 39 drives against them. One has gotten into the red zone. It was last week on a miraculous 4th and 4 bomb that Tannehill just threw up. They didn't even score on that possession because Myles Garrett sacked Tannehill within a second. And time, even though Tannehill was probably instructed to throw the ball away, he just couldn't even have time to throw it away. Time ran out in the half, and Tennessee ran to the locker room because they didn't have any timeouts. Look, this team should be 3-0. They gave up 2 fluky defensive touchdowns to Pittsburgh. Defense playing on another level. Ravens, too many injuries. So, yeah, I think Browns get this done. It could be low scoring, division game. So I actually played, instead of laying the points, I actually did play money line. I parlayed them money line with the 49ers money line, which I think is safe. And that gets you even money. Because this could be a really low scoring game. I feel a little bit more comfortable with the money line on Cleveland if someone wants to take that route as well. But I also like them if you can get 2.5 up to -115.
Well, to me, something to keep an eye on, and I've heard some people talking about it this week. I didn't watch that much of the game, though. I mean, I know about their talent up front, and obviously the corners are sweet. If this defense is like legitimately the number 1 defense in the league, all Deshaun has to be is operate like he doesn't need to be Mahomes. He just needs to be more Dak-ish, Jimmy Garoppolo-ish.
Jimmy G.
And are we looking at a 12-13 win team? Because if I can't score on you, guys have to score 13, 14 points a game. I mean, they're going to overwhelm people, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it is the AFC, so it's still tough. Like, there's going to be some tough games. In the AFC North, you're always going to be in these absolute wars. But
they play the 49ers this year. They play at Seattle. I mean, they're going to have some tough non-conference games because that division plays the NFC East.
Yeah, but
the NFC West.
Yeah, I will say that the schedule is kind of working out for them because you got you got to win over Cincy. You got to win over Cincy in week 1 when Burrow was messed up. And then you're going to get the Ravens here, who are dealing with a lot of injuries, and they get the 49ers, but that's after a bye week. So you get a bye week before that game, which is definitely going to help you.
Well, and you know who the Niners play next week, Sunday night, Dallas Cowboys. So that's gonna they're gonna come off a war, so they're gonna be banged up. Someone will get hurt in that game.
Yeah. So, and then after that, you got Colts, Seahawks, Cardinals. So yeah,
they play the Broncos this year. They get the Bears. They get Tech. I mean, they got. How's this team if this defense just maintains this? Not a playoff team.
Yeah, they should be. They should be a playoff team, especially because if you look at the Jets are done. They were supposed to be in the conversation. The Chargers are chargering. They were supposed to be in the conversation. So, you look around and you say, well, it looks like it's just going to be the Chiefs from that division. You got the Bills and the Dolphins, right? And then, the AFC North, you're definitely going to get 2 teams, and with Burrow looks like, I think it's going to be the Browns, and then I think the Ravens probably. But I think the Browns are certainly a playoff team. I think they're actually going to win the division. But you're right; it doesn't have to be great. Now, losing Chubb is going to hurt, like in some of those games where it's like an ugly battle. Yeah, and he could just churn out those yards. But yeah, last year he was bad, which you can't have. He just has to be average if this defense is going to be as elite as it looks, and I think it can be.
Yeah, to me, the only wild card would be like if they lose the pressure's on him, right? Because Miles and the defense is going to be fine. You saw it on the Monday night game, but it's like, what the fuck is going on here? So it's like they play in a couple bright lights game like against the 49ers, and he looks like shit, and they lose 17-13. That pressure on him. But God, we knew how good Miles is. Sometimes when you have a guy like that, like a Miles, like a Micah Parsons, a Bosa, everyone else, like even their random rotational guys get this like fake swag that turns into real swag. And all of a sudden you look up like, wait, this guy had 7 sacks on the season. It's just, because defensive linemen all rotate together. Miles Garrett could be playing with the 7th defensive line. It's not like a normal position that way. So yeah, I might have underestimated them for sure. And then probably
I just looked real quick. I only have them an underdog, projected underdog in 3 more games this year. None by more than a field goal. So yeah, I mean they're only going to face like a couple more teams. San Fran, Baltimore.
You think they'll be will they be favored? Assuming, let's say the Niners beat the Cowboys, would that be like a pick 'em? You think?
San Fran, maybe San Fran -1 pick. I bet San Fran probably opens -1. Browns take money, probably closes a pick. But yeah, it will depend.
That's a good game. That's a good morning game. Shit.
Great game. It will depend on what San Fran obviously does against Dallas, and then assuming Cleveland wins this week, because then you're not going to get another data point. But if Cleveland wins this week, San Francisco wins against Dallas, yeah, that's the one either way. That's basically a coin flip.
Okay, let's go game of the week. It's probably I said this on the pod yesterday. A team will never in the history of the league again score 70 points. Excuse me. No, I screwed that up. I guess they are favored this week, huh? Because they're playing the Bears. I guess you score 70 points, or no, excuse me. You give up 70 points, and then you're favored the next week. That'll never happen again in league history. Do you agree with that?
And the team that scored 70 points is an underdog.
Do you think? Would you rather lose 50-0 or 70-20? Because that's basically 3 more touchdowns on top.
I would say 50-0, because then you're always going to be in the graphic, like in 30 years from now, when someone scores like 68 points, they'll say, here are the 3 highest scoring games in NFL history, and your defense will live in infamy there. So I'll say 50-0, but it was
I agree.
The tackling. It was embarrassing. There was guys just on the ground, just like not even dying. It looked like they quit.
Well, they did.
It was embarrassing.
To me, even though it's not technically the NFL record, because it's 1966, it is. No one will ever forget that. That's of age and watches football. Like 70 is the new modern day record in everyone's mind. So like Sean Payton ain't shaking that for a while.
Yeah, I think that they should have kicked the field goal to set the record. I mean, what is this, like sportsmanship? Like, come on.
I remember Steve Kerr did the same thing one time. Clay had 60 through 3 quarters. Like, let him try to get 80, and he didn't play him in the 4th quarter. It's like, come on, this is fun. It's sports. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I would have kicked it. Then you're in the record books forever.
Okay, you score 70, and obviously you're playing one of the better teams in the league over the last 3 or 4 years, but you're an underdog, and it's a team that you beat last year, though that game was really weird. And statistically, you know better than me, it wasn't in an outlier situation that a team with, the difference in yardages and everything ever loses that game. The Bills did. What's your thoughts? I mean, the Bills -2.5. It feels like everyone's going to be on Miami this week. I would imagine they're taking a lot of public cash.
Yeah, a ton of big public side this week. But yeah, I like the Bills here. This line, the look-at line was -3.5. So now you're getting, you're getting 2.5 because of what Miami did. But what is Buffalo the last 2 weeks has beat 2 teams 75-13. Like, it's not like Buffalo is rolling. That offensive line is playing well, which is the big question coming into the year. And what Miami did was unbelievable. McDaniel's awesome. That offense is great. And they did it without Armstead and Waddle, by the way. But they did it. Their offense has exploded against the Chargers and the Broncos, who haven't been able to stop a nosebleed this year. I mean, Sam Howell put up 32 points in 3 quarters against the Broncos defense to come back from 17 down. Sam Howell last week did nothing against this Bills defense. He was sacked 9 times, I think. And they got absolutely seal clapped by Buffalo. And, Buffalo, the way that I look at this game, and by the way, when these 2 teams played late last year, Buffalo was a 7-point home favorite. This is a big overreaction. And now you're coming down across the 3. And yeah, look, it's a week. You never want to overreact to one thing that you see in the NFL. Miami's offense looked amazing last week. They rolled. But if you go back 30 years in the NFL, teams that win by more than 35 points, the next week, they're 38% against the spread. So teams that look, oh my God, they win by 35, usually you might get a little overcorrection in the market, which I think we got here. And, go back to the New England game. New England kind of slowed down Miami enough to win that game. They just didn't have an offense, right? They would get in across the 50, and then, Mac Jones and those receivers just couldn't make enough plays. But they had opportunities to win that game, held Miami under 30. There's some things that McDermott can take from that. McDermott's owned Tua in the past. And Buffalo, look, this is how I look at this game. Buffalo has an elite offense. Miami has an elite offense. Buffalo has an elite defense. Miami does not. Miami's defense right now, they're still trying to figure it out. You're missing Ramsey, Howard. They're supposed to be their top corner. I think he's a little past over the hill and past his prime. And
not in the bedroom.
That defense isn't great. So I just think, and then look, the special teams. Miami special teams last year by some ratings were dead last in the NFL. This year they've been bad as well. Buffalo last year by some metrics finished number 1. So that could matter in a game that could be close. So I have the team playing at home with the better defense and the better special teams, and in a matchup of 2 elite offenses. What I think that leads to is just Buffalo's D will get 1 or 2 more key stops in this game. Should be fun, but now that this line, you can get a cheap 3 or 2.5. I think that you have to take Buffalo here and sell Miami after what they did last week.
Every Tua highlight of them doing something sweet, there's no one around them.
Yeah, no pressure. Denver gets no pressure. I mean, and they blitz a ton. I don't know what Vance Joseph is doing, but yeah, they get no pressure whatsoever. If you look at the defense, like an advanced metric of all of the Denver defense, it's like pressure rate, hurries, knockdowns. I've never even seen it. It's just zeros. It's just like no one showed up and did anything. But Buffalo,
you hit this guy. The 49er game last year, they came in. It was like, this is gonna be a big game, and they just kept hitting him. They were blitzing him, and it threw him off. Even if, obviously, if he gets injured, it would throw Miami off. But if he's gonna play and stay, you got to hit him. Whether that's blitzing, obviously, like you said, Buffalo can just generate pressure with their front. Like, you hit this guy. I mean, there's a reason he took Taekwondo this offseason to try to learn how to fall, because when he gets hit, he flies to the ground. He's not very big. So that's got to be the key for all the big boys who are now, Miami's trying to act like they're in that category. We'll see. I mean, beside the weather, which when you look at their schedule, they actually sneaky get to avoid. Like, if you're Buffalo, you would have loved to flip the 2 games. You would like them to come to you December. You would want to go to Miami right now. But regardless of the weather, like, hit Tua. And that's like, okay, we'll pepper you like a Mahomes or Josh Allen, and can you maintain this, scoring 30 on us? We'll see, because I would bet no.
Yeah. I mean, Buffalo this year, one of 4 teams with a pressure rate of over 30%, and they have a bottom 3 blitz rate. So they
don't even need to get pressure to blitz.
Yeah, they pressured Sam Howell 58% of his dropbacks last week and finished with 9 sacks and barely blitzed. A lot of that is, Howell's also holding the ball too long, but they should be able to get pressure. And then the Buffalo defense, always under McDermott, always does a tremendous job in preventing explosive plays. It helps to have 2 just savvy veteran safeties in Hyde and Poyer back there. So Miami's going to have to work it down the field. They're going to score. Offense is too good not to. But I think Buffalo will get a couple key stops here, and Buffalo's offense should cook down the field against this Miami defense.
Do you think if Miami loses this game, then that division's wide open, right? Buffalo has just as good a chance as Miami to win it. If Miami does not win the division as a wild card and has to go to places like Kansas City or Buffalo, I mean, let's face it, I would not put them on that level. Now, if they are able to win the division and get home games against them, then I'd give them a chance. But they are, like, to me, if Kansas City was, had to go on the road, like if they're the 4 seed, I don't think they will be, but let's just hypothetically say I would think nothing of it, right? Even Buffalo, I do believe that they could go on the road with Josh Allen. Miami, at least until we see it, like I think they got to be the home team to have a chance come January, just because of the weather. I mean, historically, you follow trends, like, aren't they 0 and whatever and 40 degree and below just as a franchise? Because you can't manipulate that when it's 87 degrees January 3rd at practice.
Yeah. I would make an exception is if they were going on the road in, the NFC.
Yeah,
And you're
I'm
playing
talking Buffalo,
indoors.
Kansas City,
Yes, but
Cleveland.
all the places you're going to play are outdoors in the NFC. All the teams that you're going to face, you're outdoors in weather. So it's not like you're going on the road and getting to play like in New Orleans, right? Even though it's a hostile environment, you're on a fast track. Yeah, you're going in weather, and you don't have a great defense. So yeah, you want to be Miami's best shot. I agree. Is at home and winning in shootouts against the other top tier AFC quarterbacks and offenses.
Yeah, they are a fun story, and this gets its own TV type game. I can't wait. So thanks, Stuckey. So you're going Cleveland money line, taking the Jags bright and early, and just I don't know if I'm watching much of this game, Jags versus Atlanta, and then you're going with the smart guys, taking Buffalo -2.5, Miami. I'm gonna go with Dallas -6.5 against Belichick, and 1-3 start, Bill. It could get ugly in New England quick. So
yeah,
just like
1-3 is you're close to dead in the AFC.
Okay, Stuckey, have a good weekend. Enjoy college football, and then, like always, enjoy the National Football League. I will talk to you next week.
Absolutely, I'll root your Cowboys bet in. Have a good one.
Let's go, boys, baby.